Hey everybody, Jim Yort here with the Right Life Project, and I thought I would take a few minutes today to talk about a problem that many people face, whether it is in their career or the workplace or their relationships or even in their pursuit of physical health goals, which is this conundrum of balancing risk and safety. Now you might be facing this problem even without realizing it, perhaps. For instance, have you ever considered changing careers? And so there's a career that maybe has some allure, you feel drawn to it, but then you think, well, I have these obligations. I have to put food on the table for my family, for instance. And maybe I wouldn't be able to do that if I were in the middle of a transition to another career. Or maybe if I tried something new, people would make fun of me. I don't know. Whatever the case, maybe you end up keeping your head down, staying in your lane. Or perhaps you have an idea for some way that you could improve things at work or some new strategy that your company could employ. But again, you think, well, if I raise this idea, maybe I'll be ignored or maybe I'll be ridiculed. Or maybe even worse, they'll try my idea and then it won't work and then I'll end up looking bad. So maybe it's better to just keep my head down and stay quiet. Now, if you're the leader of an organization, then this question of risk and safety really is one of your primary concerns because you have an investment there in this company of financial and human resources that you need to decide how to deploy. So are you doing that wisely and assertively and pushing outside your comfort zone to some degree? Or are you going to end up the next Kodak, say? So intent on staying in your own lane and doing what you know, in the case of Kodak, film, while the rest of the world moves on to digital, that you end up stagnant and stuck. So, really what we're talking about then in all of these examples is change. Change, improvement, and growth. All of these things require letting go of the status quo, really by definition, or at least holding the status quo lightly enough so that you're open to considering new ideas and new ways of doing things. I'm sure you can think of examples in your personal life or in the business world of the cost of playing it too safe. You end up kicking yourself, not achieving what you want, etc. And there's good neurobiological reason for both of those things, both playing it safe and feeling that way afterward. This is something I talk about all the time in talks and with clients, and I write about it all the time on my website, rightlifeproject.com. So I encourage you to go over there if you'd like to learn more. In a nutshell, we have, as humans, a human brain problem, I call it. We have a divided interests in our brain. We have a reptilian, subcortical, primitive brain that's really concerned with keeping us out of trouble and keeping us happy right now. And so it likes to avoid risk and new things, right? It likes the comfort of what's known, and it likes to reach for the next shiny object that it thinks might make us happy. But so when faced with change, growth, doing the difficult thing, often it will incline towards playing it safe and staying in your lane. Now, the problem with that is that we have another part of our brain up here, the neocortex, the cerebral cortex, the part that makes us human, the uniquely human part of our brain. That's the part of you that wants to act, that has a grander vision for your life. And when you don't, then it feels frustrated. And that's what can spawn regret, right? And this sense of unfulfillment or stuckness. And you end up kicking yourself. Now, really, you ought to be kicking your reptilian brain because that's the culprit. But we end up kicking our whole selves and often coming away with negative views of ourselves when we play it too safe. So really what's happening here is your reptilian brain is writing checks that the rest of you has to cash. So when I think about this topic, it actually brings to mind fishing, believe it or not. Bear with me here. So several years ago, I took some intensive training in fly fishing. Now, fly fishing isn't like this image that you may have of fishing from the movies or commercials where you sort of row your boat out into the middle of a lake and drop your hook in the water and just sit there drinking beer all day and waiting for fish to come and bite your hook. I have fished like that a couple of times as a kid, without the beer, of course. And frankly, I find it kind of boring. And since I'll be using fishing as a metaphor, maybe I can go further and say that this idea of just waiting for the things I want to come to me doesn't really jibe with my approach to life. I like to be more strategic, and that's what fly fishing is. So when you fly fish, the first thing you do is tie a fly, which is an imitation of a bug or an insect in some stage of development. And then you go to a stream and you cast this fly very delicately so that it lands on the water lightly, much like a real insect would. And ideally, then the fish is attracted to this and bites your fly. But there's more to it than just tying a fly and casting it properly. You have to cast your fly to where the fish are most likely to be. And in order to do that, you need to understand how the fish think. And it turns out they're pretty strategic too. So trout, which are the most common fish that fly fishermen fish for, they love areas of change. They love areas of transition. So anywhere where there is brightly lit water next to shadow, or quickly moving water next to calm water, or where the shallows drop off into a deeper area, those are the places where they're most likely to be. Why is this? Well, and ideally, what they're looking for is all those together. So if you can find a spot where there's brightly lit, fast-moving current next to a deep, calm, dark pool, now you're really in the money. Okay, that's definitely where they're most likely to be hanging out. They do this because they're striking a very strategic balance here between risk and safety. From within this pool, they're more hidden from view. It's calm, so they don't have to expend energy. And they also have a good vantage point upstream where they can spot approaching opportunities. Insects land upstream and they're carried down by the current, kind of like room service. All they have to do is wait for the food to come to them. And then when it does, then they can dart out into the current, take their food, and then bring it back home to enjoy it. So if instead they spent all their time in that turbulent, fast-moving water, trying to find insects as they fly past, well, a couple things. One, they don't have as good of a perspective on what's coming from inside the current, right? They can see better from the pool. And also, if they're darting around and just having to fight even stay in one place in that swiftly moving current, they're quickly going to become exhausted and swept downstream, and they'll probably end up food for another fish. Okay? So they place themselves very strategically to capitalize on risk and opportunity while balancing that with staying safe. So why am I telling you this? What does this mean for a human? Well, what I'm suggesting is that you need to approach your life and your achievement and your movement toward the goals and the life you want in much the same way that this fish does. Except rather than making your home in a deep pool of water, what I'm asking you to do is to make your home in the deep pool of your core values. So these are the intangibles, the eternal, subjective qualities that define who you are, that inspire you, that orient you to the kind of life that you want, or the kind of business that you want, if you're a leader. They aren't the things that you want, they're the reason for the things that you want. Okay, we're one level below here. And when you can make these motivators primary, okay, now you have an abundant source of fuel for your life, right? These kind of intrinsic, powerful core motivators can propel you in the long term, kind of like a marathon runner, as opposed to a sprinter with short bursts of speed and then having to rest because you're so exhausted. Okay? Now, if you get it backward and you just end up chasing from one achievement to the next, one shiny object to the next, well, then you can end up fish food, like our friend the fish that I was using in my example, right? Burned out, stuck, and unfulfilled. So if you're that person that I used in the example at the beginning who has an idea for an improvement that could be made at work, but you're too scared to speak up, why don't you go ahead and speak up anyway? Okay, if this is a well-intended idea that's grounded in your desire to be competent, to be a helpful team player, to be a visionary, and if you express the idea wisely and delicately, much like casting that fly in the stream, if all these things are true, then people are going to be more likely to bite. And even if they don't, or if they try your idea and it doesn't work, you've still accomplished a couple of very important things by doing this. For one, you've exercised the muscles that define you, that make you who you are. You've brought into the world the very best you that you can be. Okay? And that's always a good thing. And second, no matter how things work out, you'll have learned something new about yourself and the company in this example. Neither of those will be the case if you are afraid and stay silent and quiet and don't take action. Okay? So this is just one example, and again, you can apply this to your relationships, your career, your the workplace, your leadership role if you have one, and even your physical health goals. What we can do here is much like that fish. We can find this sweet spot where we make our home in the things that we know to be true about us, that we want in our life. And then we can remain vigilant and able to respond quickly when opportunities to express those things in the world arise. And yeah, that might be difficult and scary sometimes, but you'll have your safe base back inside, right? In these intrinsic core values that don't change from moment to moment. They don't just up and disappear one day. So you can feel safe making your home there and then figure out what bait to jump for next. Okay, so those are my thoughts for today. If you found this video helpful, then please go down here and click like, and please share it with other people. Also, please visit my website at rightlifeproject.com, where I have lots of resources for individuals and organizations who are looking to break out of unhelpful thought and behavior patterns and start thriving from the inside out. Okay, so thank you for joining me today, and I will see you next time. Bye.